When Kong Skull Island first hit theaters, the YouTube channel CinemaSins did a video detailing all the ways the film sinned in their popular Everything Wrong With series. This would have been an unremarkable video for them if not for the director of Kong Skull Island, Jordan Vogt-Roberts, taking to Twitter to criticize the video. Tons of movie reviews are criticized by their creators, but Vogt-Roberts' perspective gained traction because, well, he was right. The big criticism? That the review from CinemaSins flat out lied about his movie.
It looks like this movie spent half its budget on rain machines and made sure key scenes took place with them involved, so we couldn't hear the dialogue. Cole's not excited about the bombs going off. He's just happy that the director chose him for the obligatory destruction reflecting off sunglasses shot. Just out of curiosity, if a landmass has this much of a reputation, why is it just now being discovered?
As the director summarizes, critics like CinemaSins want to appear smarter than the media they criticize.
Wait, aren't they like a parody channel? I remember it was a parody channel. I've never seen them as like an actual, like, full-on critics.
Sins isn't playing a character. They're just nitpicking movies as themselves. Jeremy even acknowledged this in his Reddit AMA, saying, "I've always been a hyper-observant, nitpicking jerk. Everything Wrong With is just a manifestation of that."
So this is not the first time I've discussed bad media criticism on my channel, and it's not going to be the last time either. Bad media criticism is a term that's thrown around a lot.
Dishonest storytelling uses narrative elements in far more petty and biased ways. Taking one's limited perspective and writing it as the entire truth is dishonest.
Bad media criticism isn't simply just disagreeing with someone. It's not saying something you don't agree with. It's when the criticism itself seems to fundamentally misinterpret the piece of media being discussed, even when it's supposedly going through a scene frame by frame by frame.
A peach! Yeah. Princess Peach!
Oh my god.
Give it her pants!
Why even talk about this guy? We already know he fell off the rocker. He's using AI and stuff. His book is something that's apparently weird.
Now, bad media criticism exists everywhere. YouTube is not unique in this regard. Part of the reason I made the jump to YouTube over written media was due to wanting to distance myself from several hot takes in media publishing designed to draw hate clicks. And if I'm going to draw criticism, it's going to be because I said something ridiculous. I don't want to be associated with someone else's bad media takes. I want to be associated with my own.
So apparently Anthony Gramuglia was uber triggered by the most 3 devastating sentences he's ever heard.
Just some
Peter
guy.
Parker isn't gay. There's 60 plus years of comics proving this. Stop ruining characters by playing politics. So, like a typical precious snowflake, Anthony penned a 1,400 word rant just to call me a homophobe.
This screenshot is the sole time he's referenced in the article where I say he's not a homophobe.
So if I screw up on my own terms. However, there's a danger to YouTube. Even though it's the independent channel and you're not being linked to a greater company or organization, bad media takes take up a lot of attention. They draw a lot of clicks. They draw a lot of anger.
Oh yeah, they do.
And some channels feed on that rage. They feed on the anger drawn by a certain audience.
They live
and
off
that draws
it.
more attention.
They're like vampires. I want to suck that drama out of your blood, out of your veins.
And the algorithm rewards bad takes and bad faith criticism.
But unlike all of those previous failures, this one tries to have a woke
The
plot
Gooner
twist.
Clanker.
She's not the mother of the savior. She's actually the savior herself. Yeah, I felt nothing at this reveal.
The more outrageous, the better.
And to try to pin the fact that mutants are minorities as proof that it's social justice. It's both intellectually lazy and dishonest.
Now, negative reviews have always done this to an extent. There's a sort of joy some people get feeling like they're better than the movie, that they've beaten the movie, that they've outsmarted it.
It's a
This isn't
movie.
new. Some of Roger Ebert's best reviews are the ones where he tears into a film.
I hated this movie. Hated this movie. Hated it. Hated every simpering, stupid, vacant, audience-insulting moment of it.
There's a whole book.
Damn.
But there's a difference between writing an honest review, giving your thoughts, and approaching each and every film with the intention of criticizing it. And more than criticizing it, mocking it.
Kind of a forgettable show. Look, acting was great. Cinematography was great. The writing was good. But it was a lot of little things. I mean, when we saw the camera in the previous episode, there were like screws in the wall.
This is
Huh? Even out of context, that's just straight up like, that's a sentence he chose to say, I guess.
isn't like Mystery Science Theater 3000 riffs, all right? You in those you laugh with both, the hosts and the film itself.
There. Sure glad I don't look stupid in this.
This is the kind of media criticism that approaches each film as a puzzle. How is this media bad? And by that same metric, how can I solve the problem of the movie? Rather than take the film on its own terms, you come in knowing your goal, to tear it apart.
Pushing identity politics and the message.
This is a response for Star Wars The Acolyte. The film came months before it came out.
Some famous critical reviews have forced you to reevaluate a film. Mel Brooks' comments on Life is Beautiful, a film that implies you can laugh through the darkest times, even genocide, forced a lot of people to reevaluate this award-winning film. Chinua Achebe's famous criticisms of Heart of Darkness rewrote academic textbooks for decades and led to the creation of Achebe's counterpart to Hearts of Darkness, Things Fall Apart. But one thing both of these criticisms have in common, they address the themes and ideas of the work. When referencing specifics, it's in order to bolster the argument that the themes are fundamentally wrong. Patrick Willems made a video a while back on plot holes that garnered a lot of negativity at the time, mainly from people who argued that holes in logic and plot were essential to criticize. You had to focus on them, and to an extent that makes sense, right? The plot is the story, right?
No one seems to actually know what a plot hole is. And all those plot holes people complain about, they don't actually matter.
By criticizing plot holes, we'd understand some deeper truth about storytelling, right?
A plot hole is a point in which a story breaks a previously established rule about its own universe. So here's what are not plot holes.
These critics seem to believe that by understanding the technical flow of a plot, that you'll understand all the components of storytelling. I disagree. The way a film makes you feel is more important than the plot as written on a plot summary, right? There are more components to a film and its story than just the plot. That is the written events as they occur. A lot more happens beyond the plot.
I mean, has to happen, otherwise what kind of movie/plot is it?
My recent video essay comparing the film Excalibur to the works of Zack Snyder focused on the way Snyder and Excalibur failed to employ their characters effectively. From a plot standpoint, Excalibur works perfectly fine. There are several events that happen, and while a few plot beats come out of nowhere, on paper, it's the story of King Arthur.
Swear faith to me, and you shall have mercy. I need battle lords such as you.
What the film faltered in was characterization and how it rushed through its themes. But on the other hand, dismissing the film's stunning visuals and music in order to focus on just the plot and how the plot flows is a huge disservice to Excalibur. The plot is easy to talk about. You don't need to study cinematography to get it. It's also the easiest thing to lie about, because frankly, most people do not follow every component of the plot as it unfolds before them. For the sake of argument, consider Blade Runner, one of the essential sci-fi films of the 80s. The film is on paper about a police officer, Deckard, a Blade Runner, hunting down rogue androids, known as replicants, from space. He finds them, exterminates them, and then runs away with a woman he is infatuated with who also happens to be a replicant. On paper, this sounds unremarkable, cliche almost. So much of this story is told, however, through subtle means outside of the main plot. For one, Deckard always looks miserable. Hunting replicants is never shown to be exciting or thrilling. One replicant runs from Deckard before being gunned down. The final replicant, Batty, chases Deckard across the city and ultimately saves him before talking about the nature of life and passing away.
I've seen things. You people wouldn't believe.
We're shown these dark, crowded streets promoting life on the off-world colonies. We're seeing an overpopulated city and the promise of somewhere better. We learn also that these colonies are being built primarily through the slave labor of the replicants, who are given only 4 years to live. And many replicants are so human that it's almost impossible to tell them apart without exact tests. And some of these replicants don't even realize that they're human.
She doesn't know.
She's beginning to suspect, I think.
Suspect? How can it not know what it is?
Commerce.
A blanket plot summary would overlook these key details of the film. That's
Yeah,
why it's
because
more
it's
to a
focused
film
on
than its plot.
Quite an experience to live in fear, isn't it? That's what it is to be a slave.
Now, I'm not here to talk about Blade Runner today, but I can if you ask me to.
Subtle.
The point of this little exercise is to highlight how little some people engage with media outside of the plot. In fact, studios realize that audiences might not pick up on any of this.
Yeah?
Any of the story, all this stuff beyond the plot, they wouldn't pick up on. That's why they forced Ridley Scott to make Harrison Ford spell out the subtext to audiences in one of the most widely criticized elements of the theatrical cut of Blade Runner.
Recreational facilities. They don't advertise for killers in a newspaper.
Harrison Ford's bored, exhausted narration where he just tells you what's happening in front of you.
You mean classic Harrison Ford? Without the direction and everything? Newsflash. But yeah, I haven't watched Blade Runner, but was it Blade Runner? Maybe I'm late. I haven't watched this movie, so I can't criticize it 100%, but I'm getting it.
I'd quit because I'd had a belly full of killing, but then I'd rather be a killer than a victim. And
What?
that's exactly what Bryant's threat about little people meant.
This is widely seen as a big mistake. That being said, some bad media critics might need this. They might not get the plot otherwise, unless it's spelled out to them by a bored Harrison Ford dragged back, at 4 o'clock in the morning to read.
I mean, it also plays on the whole detective monologue, I think.
The script.
So that was, I think, their main plan with it, if that's the case. Yeah, it can be a mistake because it kills the mystery and everything, but overall, I think it's not that bad to include.
Just out of curiosity, if a landmass has this much of a reputation, why is it just now being discovered?
Because if, let's say they might just shout plot hole whenever... Here's an example of a plot hole in Blade Runner. During Batty's final speech to Deckard, he mentions, going to Orion, which is a star system deep in space. Way longer than the 4 years lifespan could ever allow you to travel.
Attack ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion.
Now, some might argue that's a technical plot hole. I argue it doesn't matter, because the focus on that scene is to show that Batty has seen things, and all these moments will be lost in time, like
tears and rain.
And that's compelling. The emotion is compelling. The technical details, who cares? The idea is that Batty has seen things, these things matter, and that in a few minutes, it'll be forgotten. The themes are more powerful than the technical elements of the plot. But if you approached every film like a CinemaSins ticker, then you'd say, oh, plot hole, this movie's bad. Like, who cares? Doesn't matter. Doesn't affect your enjoyment.
I mean, again, CinemaSins is a parody, isn't it?
Maybe in those last moments he loved life more than he ever had before.
Part of the reason why the question if Deckard is a replicant annoys me is because people get caught up in the technicalities and not the why. The question being unanswered is so important because it forces audiences to question human nature. As they say in the film,
it's too bad she won't live. But then again, who does?
Now that question is more profound than an hour-long fan theory video breaking down the evidence for this theory. The theory is told in brushstrokes on a canvas, not a chart. It's impressionistic.
It's art.
The thing is with bad media criticism, the ultimate point is to keep you engaged. That's why the sins ticker goes up. That's why a new criticism is made every second. More vitriolic than the last.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about some of the criticisms critically, you'll pick them apart.
Criticisms
Good media criticism
critically.
forces you to reevaluate a text, and even if you disagree, you might have at least thought about it. Erroneous criticism, which I'm definitely guilty of, they might make you, that's when you make an error once or twice or 3 times. It's in good faith, but you might make an error about something. Even then, that still forces you to go, hey, wait a second, that's wrong. And then the critic, if they're being in good faith, will go, oh, you're right, I am wrong, I apologize. Or to some extent, to revise their argument. That's good faith criticism. Bad faith criticism comes from the approach that I am right, you're wrong, no matter what you say I am right, and I will always be right even if you point out every error I made and spelled it out to me.
That's just straight up, what was it? The pirate software style of gaslighting. We're dealing with competitive gaslighters over here.
Fandom discourse is full of self-contradictory phrases that people love to say a
Oh,
lot
yeah.
but don't actually adhere to. Chief among them is, I respect your opinion even though I disagree with it. This is an oxymoron.
That is the key difference. The refusal to accept when you are wrong.
If you're negative, you're gonna have the screeching of 1,000 illiterate fucksticks descend upon you like a horde of sweaty, unwashed, transphobic bats.
And the insistence on doubling down when you are wrong.
Sorry, did you want to get immersed in our world? Yeah, well, guess what? Fucking pronouns!
Bad media
Pronouns.
criticism's ultimate goal, though, is to supplant the original media in your mind. And the way they do that is by sometimes just making shit up.
Characters as powerful as Dream or as supposedly perfect as Superman are well liked and aren't usually considered Mary Sue's is because the plot doesn't treat them as such. If a fresh-faced farm boy who's never even seen a sword suddenly picks one up and without any kind of outside divine or supernatural aid defeats a war veteran of 15 years in single combat, you likely just witnessed a Mary Sue moment.
Trained my entire life to master my senses. Where did you train? On a farm?
Plot doesn't treat them as such.
They'll either misrepresent scenes, omit key details to make their point land better, or in some cases, lie.
So this is pretty wild. In spite of mostly positive reviews from both sides of the culture war, Disney's X-Men 97 appears to be a complete flop in terms of viewership.
And don't worry, we're going to go into a couple examples of that soon enough. But the question you might have is, why would they do that?
You really think someone would do that? Just go on the internet and tell lies?
The reason is ultimately
Topical.
engagement. The algorithm on YouTube, and honestly the internet at large, rewards engagement. The longer you stay on something, the better it is. The more you click on it, the better it is. What keeps someone engaged? New reasons to be emotionally invested, either to be angry or to be frustrated or justified in your own predetermined beliefs before coming to the page or the video. This is why you usually see a lot of 2 kinds of reviews on YouTube. Concise and straightforward reviews that make a point and then end, or the massive sprawling videos that go on for hours and hours and hours and end, sometimes longer than the source material
it's
itself.
like, I understand if you have criticisms and genuinely give you all your thoughts, but talking to what was it, like berating people and trying to prove your point is like the dumbest thing you could ever do.
Long form reviews are very entertaining if you get the right people working on them. Or at the very least, they're the kind of thing you can listen to while doing other work. I mean, you can tune in and you can follow along very well. I'm sure some of you are doing that with this video right now. When I was in college, I wrote essays while listening to Red Letter Media's Star Wars reviews.
Star Wars The Phantom Menace was the most disappointing thing since my son.
However, to keep audiences engaged and for longer, what a lot of reviewers resort to is hyper-emphasizing the negative. Finding new things to critique every 5 seconds. Focus on a new plot hole. Focus on a new cliche. Focus on a new trick that pulls the plot along in order to trick you into thinking you're having fun. In the more extreme examples, anything that tries to invoke an emotion in the audience is deemed manipulative. It's deemed cheap by the critic. Now, a bad faith media critic will take away the themes and ideas of a work in order to solve the problems the media presents, it being good being that problem. Why is The Last Jedi so awful? How is Steven Universe bad, actually? How is Sherlock bad, actually? Oh, wait, that actually was a good video, actually. Why is Total Spies just 99 DeviantArt fetishes? Okay, well, that's actually just not a video on YouTube, I think, but it should be. I'm done dodging around the point, though. What are some examples of bad media criticism? Let's start with the Mary Sue criticism. One of the more widely used ones. Every female character is stamped with this moniker, from Captain Marvel to Rey Skywalker. And, does this always apply?
Luke Skywalker stands as a good character, and why Rey stands as a lifeless, blatant Mary Sue.
Yeah, well...
Isn't the whole point that Luke Skywalker is literally just George Lucas's last name? It's like Luke S. Lucas. It's like a self-insert in a sense.
You know, that's just like
a bunch of comic goop.
I don't know, maybe. I mean, what's a Mary Sue anyway? The origins of the term date back to the Star Trek fandom, as a parody of the self-insert characters who are just good at everything they do, and everyone loves them, and they're just fantastic, they can do no wrong, and they're just better than everyone else. Making fun of pure wish fulfillment. Now, what separates a true Mary Sue from, say, your Luke Skywalkers or other heroes is the lack of struggle.
Pushed onto us under the thin veneer of homage, the stories of Rey and Luke Skywalker make a fairly easy side-by-side comparison.
Everything should just come to the character naturally being able to do everything without needing to grow or develop. They start at a point of perfect skill level and never need to improve. And outside of skill level, they also just have perfect relationships with everyone.
Which means Rey and Luke are both expected to begin their journey as relatively normal people, discounting legendary fathers, ancient prophecies, etc.
Let's look at a few common criticisms of Rey to see why people think she's a Mary Sue.
Luke Skywalker is introduced with a particular set of skills such as general knowledge on droids, how to drive, and how to use weaponry. Now, how does he know those things? Believe it or not,
know about weaponry?
Tell us directly.
I know about the T-16 Skyhopper thing, and I know that he's like a moisture farmer, but the whole weaponry thing? I mean, that one he gets some practice with a lightsaber, and even then I wouldn't call it knowledge on weapon. I don't know.
It is a movie after all. It can show us things, and we, as the audience, can make logical connections. Rey doesn't have anything for the audience to connect with. Instead, the movie decides to focus on how alone she is. In fact, you could say that she's almost like a human version of Pixar's WALL-E, without the humanity. Luke was taught farming skills by his uncle because his uncle was a farmer. The movie spends
they live together,
establishing this fact, while Rey can scavenge and survive alone on the desert home planet because she's just awesome.
I mean, didn't she get taken care of by the guy who oversees all the junk stuff there? And maybe when she came of age, she no longer, like, had a home, so she had to live amongst the scrap stuff? Maybe, I don't know.
So one big criticism of Rey is that she seems to be good at everything. She never loses a fight, she knows the Millennium Falcon better than Han does, can do the Force without training. So let's break a couple of these down.
3 different systems.
What'd you do?
I bypassed the compressor.
The easiest scene to discuss is the scene where Rey fixes the Falcon's hyperdrive.
Rey fixing the Millennium Falcon better than Han Solo, its former owner. The usual defense for—
I mean, to be fair, that Falcon was like gone for a few years and got modified, I think. So who knows what the hell happened to it while Han was gone.
This is that Rey is a scavenger and lives alone, and can therefore fix things like a trained mechanic. But we don't know this for sure.
Most bad faith criticisms ignore the fact that she was aware of the modifications made to the Falcon, since Han had it.
Yes.
Some moof milker put a compressor on the ignition line.
Unkar plucked it. I thought it was a mistake too, but it's too much stress on the hyperdrive.
And during a key scene, bypasses a modification made after Han lost the Falcon that made the Falcon function worse.
I bypassed the compressor.
And once more, the movie had the perfect opportunity for a setup and missed it entirely.
Some moof milker put a compressor on the ignition line.
But we don't know this for sure.
That's all information she's seen firsthand, so naturally she knows this.
Rey is introduced with unexplained expert fighting skills, technical skills, and magical expert level piloting skills despite only dabbling. Still no sign of a mentor, and she uses all these skills to save the day.
As for fighting, well, Rey grew up on
Can you really call the Obi-Wan a mentor? Like, he just gave him, what was it, a lightsaber practice and nearly take off Obi-Wan's head, and that's it. Like barely deflected some laser blasts.
Where scavengers fight for scraps. We even see her fighting in the background of a scene, demonstrating her lived experience before she demonstrates it in a fight. What lived experience does Luke Skywalker have fighting?
Where did you train?
On a farm?
He played with toys all his life.
A scavenger.
I mean, he was given background. I know the fact that he practiced on a T-16 Sky. Maybe that's just expanded media that I remember, but I guess you could say, but at the exact same time, But the same thing can be said about Rey. Like, you don't get her full background story, so...
Doubt the benefit of Finn's decades of military-level training, has no sign of a mentor, and is completely self-taught. How does she fare against Kylo Ren, who, if you recall, has been trained by not one, but two legendary mentors?
So let's count the times Rey wins a fight on her own without any help. Now, we're going to ignore any Stormtrooper fights because, honestly, who in Star Wars can't just fight through Stormtroopers? So her first major fight is in The Force Awakens, where she fights Kylo Ren, and she's beaten in 5 seconds and then gets kidnapped. Later, she fights Kylo Ren again, and Kylo Ren at this point has had a hole blasted in him by Chewie and just fought Finn. And that fight ends with the planet breaking apart beneath them after Rey lands one hit.
Yeah, it's practically a stalemate, not even like a W.
Definitive win, but she was winning against a guy who had fought, was tired, and had a giant hole in his stomach. Then in The Last Jedi, she fights Snoke and gets swung around like a ragdoll. Then she teams up.
Can you even call that a fight? As far as I know, she was just being restrained with the Force, and that's it. Like, if anything, Kylo just basically did, oh yeah, I would just pull a massive IQ move, twist the lightsaber, ignite it, and kill him. Ooh, kill him. But, like, was that even a fight? Do people treat that as a fight?
With Kylo Ren against the Praetorian Guard, and again, only wins with Kylo's help. Then they force struggle over a lightsaber, and neither win. Rey doesn't get an unambiguous victory on her own until Rise of Skywalker, where she manages to land a serious blow on Kylo Ren.
With alleged training from Leia, as well as a time skip, but...
But Kylo Ren is distracted by the memory of his mother at that time.
Oh yeah, the cheap shot.
She lands a hit on a guy whose back is turned to her. And that's her second fight with Kylo Ren in that movie. 4th or 5th in total, depending on how you count the lightsaber struggle. And then she beats Palpatine by turning his Force lightning back at him. So out of all those
dumbest
fights,
way to kill someone, by the way.
Unambiguously wins in the last film. And even then, there's some conditional statement that's paired with that.
Narratively speaking, if the goal is to run Rey through a hero's journey, it would be better if she could defend herself but not be able to actually defeat them.
Yes, she did that.
Show weakness. Vulnerability. In other words, it would show her potential, but also leave room to grow.
And look, Rey isn't a perfect character. And Star Wars sequel trilogy isn't perfect. You want me to criticize her? Okay. Her entire arc is centered on waiting to be destined for something. The first film, she's waiting for her family. Second film, she's trying to figure out her heritage, her position in this great, grander story. The fact that The Last Jedi ends without her resolving the core conflict of the plot is a key element. She has no predestined part to play in the saga. But through her actions, she becomes the hero. Anyone can be the hero, regardless of where you came from, except no, because the third film shows us she has a lineage, and there's a reason why her family never came back, and she's part of this big grand destiny to stop Palpatine's return. And you get all the answers that completely undermine all the legwork made leading up to this point.
It's like there was no direction in those movies to begin with.
There are genuine issues with the sequel trilogy. Why was Finn set up to be a Jedi and then there's no payoff?
Funnily enough, in a Lego movie special, they literally pay it off. But damn, like an actual Lego series goes out of its way to pay respects to Finn. Not the Star Wars series itself. Lego.
Why does The Rise of Skywalker completely veer off track of the story that the prior two films set up? Why is Kylo Ren, a character who's positioned to be the big bad, supplanted when he finally gets to a position of power where he can be the villain?
Was he even a villain?
These are issues that are harder to discuss.
He's like a baby throwing a temper tantrum.
Discuss than simply going, This is a plot hole. Raise a Mary Sue. These are complex questions with complex answers. And you're not going to get those from someone who just wants to complain about Rey winning every fight that she partakes in.
Yeah.
Honest criticism requires honest thought. And that doesn't always culminate in a dopamine hit to the audience. It takes longer. People are going to lose interest if you have to set up the elements of a discussion about themes and dive into complex ideas. What they want is that dopamine hit 30 seconds in to continue watching.
Pushing identity politics and the message. They done woke it up!
A big thing with a lot of these bad movie critics appears to be honesty.
To summarize,
The fact
social
that he has
justice
that
stories
phrase
are
on
little more than
standby.
infantile revenge fantasies where the writers value power over heroism and covet self-validation rather than truthful discussion.
You motherfuckers ain't special and you're raging hypocrites. And while that may be a little bit of my opinion, what isn't my opinion is that some of you are just flat out lying.
Ultimately, what we're dealing with here is people who hate being told they're wrong and whose
My
opinions
Little
are so
Pony.
underdeveloped
Seriously?
that they can't defend them when put to the task. And you know what? Tough shit.
They constantly emphasize objective opinions with reality. The movies aren't bad because you didn't connect with them. No, they're just communicating ideas that are antithetical to your beliefs. Oh, and the tangents. These guys love to go on tangents that have nothing to do with their core thesis, never connects to their ideas, and ultimately don't even make sense on their own when you circle back and go, okay, what did you actually say, and how does that connect with
By
your core
over
ideas?
25
The
times.
reason for this is that they
Griffin,
ramble,
hell.
and they say tons of buzzwords. They'll make you think that somehow what they said is more sophisticated than it actually was. And they never speak plainly, because if they spoke plainly about their ideas, you would realize how superficial their ideas are. The faux intellectualism. In fact, if they ramble on enough, you might even forget what the thesis of their argument was. So that way, they can just shift the goalposts a little. If they throw enough at you with new information every second, you might even think they have a point. Until you pause the video and think about what they actually said and realize, oh, it's all nonsense, actually. Another common tactic is the idea of a central boogeyman. They always harp on one
Boogeyman.
particular person, usually a woman, and then criticize them. Kathleen Kennedy, Brie Larson, Anita Sarkeesian. These women become the people stealing away your media.
I mean, granted, they might not be the best, but yeah, like, I don't know, it's kind of like saying Gabe Newell was like the main face of Steam when chances are there's so many others that helped him out. Yet everyone goes out of their way to choose the most popular one. Wonder why.
These SJWs just want credit for something and excuses for continuing to ruin characters in the books that they don't even read.
A face to the blame. And if they take quotes out of context, even better.
He even admits
they
that
do
any
that.
sort of portrayal in terms of Magneto being Malcolm and Professor X being like MLK was something that was done unconsciously. He literally says that himself.
The reason being is that it's easier to get mad at an individual, to say this one person is responsible for all the problems you're seeing, rather than tackle abstract ideas like a philosophy. Also, whenever the video essayist loses track of their point, they can just point to a picture of their target and say that's the person who's at fault.
5 years ago, I made a big video on Steven Universe and haven't stopped having a migraine since.
They raise the anger levels again, and you're blinded to any faults or holes in their argument. The cycle continues again.
The damage this video has done.
And that's why you...
I hope not. From Horrors Galaxy community Reddit marveled. The LGBT for Warhammer. I mean, didn't they make that wheelchair meme?
Get angry reviews for every trailer, press release, and eventually release whenever anything science fiction or fantasy comes out. The reviewer wants to hit that knee-jerk reaction as fast as possible, even if they have to eat their own words later. Consider the critical reviewer who was so... Even if they have...
Yasuke, Yusuke, 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 Yasuke. Okay. I had no idea that. I mean... So, I mean, the last one is technically speaking correct, just, I Emphasis on the yas.
to eat their own words later. Consider the critical drinker, who was so fast to capitalize on the release of Prey that he didn't even realize people were kind of hyped for this movie.
Arnold fucking Schwarzenegger and his pumped up buddies armed with state-of-the-art weaponry got wiped out almost to the last man by just one of these things, then what kind of a chance has a 100-pound girl with a bow and arrow got against it?
And then the movie was pretty good. Moment he saw this, all the old videos he made about Prey were changed. Titles, thumbnails altered to appear more neutral.
Also, I'd like to point out that no hunter-gatherers...
What a coward. At least if you're gonna at least make a third movie to basically say, oh yeah, I was wrong.
Society of that time period would have tolerated this kind of bullshit from one of their own. Those ideas would have been literally beaten out of her. This is 21st century Hollywood's idea of what nomadic hunter tribes acted like. So strong female character takes her
Wait, didn't they like use actual like knowledge from nomadic tribes to make this? Maybe I'm mistaken.
Suspiciously domesticated pet dog.
And you know what? Good. Cool. At least that's better than a ton of grifters who don't hide their shameless grifting on every news story. You know, at least he had the self-awareness to go, okay, this is an unpopular take, let me change it slightly. Most don't. Most are shameless in their approach. Most are very superficial in their approach. When reports came out that X-Men 97 was Disney's third most watched original program to debut on Disney+, grifters were fast to call X-Men 97 a flop. Which, yeah, flops don't get greenlit for a third season before the end of season 1, and don't get reported in Variety for having 3.5 million viewers in the final episode, rising in rank with each subsequent episode.
Oh, I mean, these people do hate you. If you look at Beau DeMayo, the guy who's the showrunner for the show, he is a person who just really, really wants to tear down this society, put his global homo agenda into everything, and then you better eat it up, consumer, or you're a bigot.
Siths, but what on earth did I just hear? What? Like, maybe the author is like that, but what kind of, like, reach was that?
The other common tactic from grifters? The past is perfect.
There is a big difference between older Stan Lee Marvel and new corporate approved Marvel sanitized for a modern audience.
Peach has been an established character where she has been a delicate princess.
I just love how he's always cutting that to this thing. It's like Peach wearing her iconic outfit in the racing games. Apparently that's something that's mind blown. Shadiversity. Seriously though, that's like an outfit that I know of from like fan arts and stuff like that. That's not an unusual outfit for me, and yet apparently for him it's like the most biggest controversial thing in the universe, even though it's existed for like what, a decade, if not more so. Seriously though, how old is that outfit?
For a very long time.
There's 60 plus years of comics proving this. Stop ruining characters by playing politics.
But the right-wing grifters, easy pickings. Simple, basic. I want to show you that I'm not just letting my political bias show. So let's start talking about Anita Sarkeesian in Lily Orchard.
You know what I do like though? Old shit.
Anita Sarkeesian was for years the boogeyman of the internet, releasing fairly mediocre video essays analyzing video games from a feminist perspective. And while her videos do have faults, I don't think it's a good idea to necessarily label them all as bad faith media criticisms. Poorly crafted, yes, but from the perspective of someone with minimal experience playing games, it's not necessarily bad faith. A lot of her errors come from someone who just isn't experienced with the medium, doesn't know the experience of female gamers, etc. But they are some bad faith criticisms within Anita Sarkeesian's greater lens that I feel a lot of people, especially on the left, refuse to engage with, primarily because she was a target of so much harassment. But enough time has passed, we can actually look at some of her bad faith arguments and address them as bad faith. Take two things into account: her restrictive lens of feminism and her tendency to manipulate the game mechanics to prove a point. The latter point is easier to prove first, so we'll start there.
Once a person is reduced to the status of objecthood, violence against that object becomes intrinsically permitted.
In Hitman, she constantly implies the games encourage players to commit acts of violence in areas where you can voyeur on models.
Players are then invited to explore and exploit those situations during their playthrough.
But doing this is actually counter to the game's mechanics. The game punishes you for making too much of a scene.
The player cannot help but treat these female bodies as things to be acted upon, because they were designed, constructed, and placed in the environment for that singular purpose.
So wanton violence and wasting your time is not to your benefit.
Yeah, like, the whole point of Hitman is that it's like a secretive assassin. You can change disguises with others and maybe even go out of your way to be secretive about it. It's like, you have so many options and methods of approaching and killing, but it's killing a specific target, not like going out of your way to kill so many people or stuff like that. You're not a crazed psycho destroyer of worlds. You're a hitman. You're literally living the hitman dream, allegedly.
Players are meant to derive a profound pleasure from desecrating the bodies of unsuspecting virtual female characters.
You can do it, but you can do a lot of things in video games. You can have Mario try to give Koopas little forehead kisses in every Mario game, but that doesn't mean it'll end well for you. The problem is, though, that Anita conflates being able to do a thing in a game with the game encouraging you to do said thing.
Or even forcing
Once
you
a
to do
person is
it,
reduced
almost.
to the status of objecthood, violence against that object becomes intrinsically permitted.
There's a common theme in her video essays, but I find that less disturbing than how her specific brand of feminism impacts her criticisms. You see, what a lot of people don't realize is that feminism isn't a singular philosophy, especially if you've listened to right-wing grifters all your life. Feminism is actually an umbrella term that applies to multiple different subsets of philosophy. Many people know about fourth wave, third wave feminism. These occur because over time, people's perspectives on gender rights issues and etc. have shifted as new information becomes available and new discussions arise. It's responding to an ever-changing, progressive world. Gender identity has become a huge part of discussion. And this goes beyond simply just what gender you're assigned at birth. Gender expression is a huge point as well, with several feminists in disagreement on whether women need to embrace or reject traditional feminine presentation, or if it's the individual's choice, that the person can choose how to express their own gender however they see fit. In case it's not obvious, I believe in that last point, that people should be able to express their gender however they see fit. And so a lot of Anita Sarkeesian's arguments, which are rooted in this discussion of conforming or rejecting traditional femininity, I find very troubling. Anita, in a lot of her videos, subscribes to a very particular form of feminism, one where pacifism, beauty, and intelligence are key distinguishing features. But she also regards anything assigned with traditional female presentation, like dresses or fluffy bows, to be negative, to be stereotypical, to be cliche.
Thankfully, the game doesn't resort to clear gendered signifiers like a pink outfit or a pretty bow in her hair, nor does it present her gender as some kind of surprise twist like we see in the original Metroid. In both visual design and writing, Sword and Sorcery is subtle about asserting the Scythian's gender.
As a result, she creates a particular box for which things can be valid in her eyes as female rep, or invalid if it falls outside that box.
Unlike the deaths of so many female characters in games which serve the purpose of fueling the development of male characters, the Scythian's death is tragic because her life had intrinsic value.
This means a ton of beloved characters are arbitrarily criticized for falling outside her particular parameters, especially Nintendo characters like Princess Peach, Princess Zelda, and even Samus Aran.
Consequently, the trope robs women in peril from the opportunity of being the architects of their own escape, and therefore prevents them from becoming archetypal heroes themselves.
Yeah, but how do you...
Disguised as Sheik, she is a helpful and active participant in the adventure, transforms back into her more stereotypically feminine form of Princess Zelda. She's captured within 3 minutes. Her rescue then becomes central to the end of Link's quest. Once in a while, she might be given the opportunity to have a slightly more active role in facilitating the hero's quest, typically by opening doors, giving hints, power-ups, and other helpful items.
Which is frankly the same thing a lot of right-wing grifters do with their arguments, that they have a very specific box as to what they deem acceptable, and if it falls outside that box, it is seen as bad. The only difference is Anita is doing this from a leftist perspective, where the right-wing grifters are doing it from a right-wing perspective. But it's the same problem, it's the same faulty argument, just applied through different political lenses. And the end result is the same. rather than engage with the media in question. Both apply a restrictive limitation to what is and isn't good, which ignores a lot of the statements made by audience members of a certain particular type of media. They may find certain characters empowering, like Bayonetta, who were criticized by Anita Sarkeesian when they first came around. Now they're regarded as a beloved icon of video games, but Anita Sarkeesian argued that Bayonetta was sexist. This ignored the opinion of a lot of...
Just because she's sexy? Is that it? Shit, man. Like, seriously, what?
Women who found her empowering, and a lot of lesbians who wanted to, you know, who felt very attracted to Bayonetta, because you blame them, or bisexuals for that matter. The point is, Anita's particular lens of feminism was deemed as the authentic statement. Outside of that, nothing counted. Ignoring the voices of women to prop up your own feminism. Interesting take. The difference here is that, unlike a lot of grifters, Anita doesn't waste your time. She gets right to the point, which means her points hit harder because you're not falling asleep while watching her videos. This also means right-wing grifters can easily understand her points. Anita is clear, concise, and that makes her perfect for rebuttals because she's always saying something. Every few seconds, there's a new piece of content to create. This is opposed to your average right-wing grift video where you can literally cut out 70% of their words and lose nothing pertaining to the central argument. In fact, a lot of the times, you can cut out 70% of the video and all you're doing is cutting them out, repeating the same statement. This is not the case, however, for Lily Orchard, who has never heard of a central thesis she can stick to, and always goes off on long, rambling video essays where she completely misrepresents the target of her criticism and delivers several personalized insults for people she deems lesser than her.
Becky's not very smart, tried to do one thing, smashed her face into a wall, whatever, I get it. Because nobody who watches Utena as an adult sees a revolutionary step forward in gay rep and anime. What they see is a fucking mess. There's no way around it. This makes him come off like a fucking asshole.
Yeah, well, you know, that's just like, your opinion.
A lot of you are probably wanting me to go into the personal accusations against Lily, but if we looked into the
Kami,
accusations made about half the grifters we've discussed so far, we'd be here all day. Now, Lily Orchard is unique. She writes her scripts in stream of consciousness, which is just when you write your thoughts as they come to you. It's a rant, essentially, where she just says whatever comes to her mind, and there's no editing involved. There's no secondary thought. There's no point where she goes, okay, hang on, stop, let me edit that out so it makes more sense, or structure this so I'm improving my thesis or tying back to my core ideas. It's just stream of consciousness. And she's admitted this is not like a fake, I'm not lying about her, that's what she says. She sustains herself on pure frustration with media, adhering that all media must conform to her very specific, very rigid perspectives. And what are these perspectives? I couldn't tell you. I don't know them specifically because it feels like she contradicts them every other video. What she says in one video does not apply to another. It's whatever she likes, and her criticisms aren't always grounded in the media itself. In fact, often they are completely divorced from the media, where she confuses fan canon and her head canon with what's written in the text.
Oh yeah, that can happen.
Review, half of that is all her own fan canon and her own made-up strawman arguments that she's fighting against. Whatever she personally likes is elevated. Whatever she does not like is demonized. It's either the greatest thing of all time or the worst thing of all time. No nuance, just extremes. Even if she has to make stuff up about the work she's criticizing to prove that point.
But if you were a gay 13-year-old back in the 90s, this show and bootleg copies of Sailor Moon were all you had. And so you'd covet those
very specific target.
things and never really think critically about. Hell, most of the topics people claim it covers aren't actually in the show. It's in Adolescence of Utena, basically a movie rewrite that came out later.
The worst of this is with Steven Universe, a series she brings up multiple times in about 80% of her videos. This animated series broke ground for queer rep in media, and yet the way Orchard discusses it, you'd think Rebecca Sugar personally came to her home and mounted her My Little Pony collection with a soldering iron.
All it needed was a writer who knew what the fuck they were doing. Sorry, did I say knew what the fuck they were doing? I meant decided to actually put in some work that day. This is why Steven
I mean, again, there's 3 of them.
Universe thought nothing about taking a story regarding dysfunctional family dynamics and just throwing Nazis on top of it. Steven Universe likes to pretend it's weaving this intricate plot web, but like most stories, they're making it up as they go along. But presumably Rose had a secret identity was scribbled on a post-it note somewhere, and this is the only place where it feels like they thought about that.
Many of her specific arguments have been rebutted by more patient critics. All of Lily's arguments are extremely biased and rarely rooted in any tangible evidence in the source material. Lily's criticisms are often completely divorced from what she's criticizing. She sometimes has to make things up herself. Lily doesn't even bother. She knows her word is enough to convince her audience if she says it confidently enough, regardless of how much...
Man, this arrogance stuff with in confidence really is like the main killer. Same thing happened with Pirate Software. It's just like, say it confidently and arrogantly enough, and chances are people will believe you. You really have to like farkle your way out of all this nonsense. Sith spit. Like, come on. There has to be like, is being genuine nothing nowadays?
Many of her ideas break down after a few seconds of thought.
Magneto's new-ish backstory is pretty bog-standard sympathetic villain fodder. Namely, heroes plead to the moral sensibilities of an oppressor, and trying to end systemic discrimination by force is a bad, naughty thing for meanie-poos. It works if it's done well.
But I'll pay Lily this compliment, just this one. She's not boring. Her energy levels...
And even like a genuine like compliment just feels like more so good enough to convince you of her nonsense.
And enthusiasm for the media in question, even if it's all nonsense. Put her in a different league of grifter, one that draws energized reactions from critics like myself and her fans. Most right-wing grifters, they blur together. I can show you, I've shown you clips from multiple grifters. Could you tell them apart if you didn't know the context? If I didn't tell you who's who? Probably not. But Lily, when you see her and you hear her voice, you know exactly who she is, where she's coming from, and what her perspectives are, even if they're nonsense.
Because
she is so distinct as a voice. You can't help but notice her. And I think that's why she's had so much success as a bad media critic as opposed to other bad media critics. Look at her amount of followers. Compare that to, say, Eric July.
I didn't even see that. How many were there?
Media critics. Look at her.
141,000.
Her amount of followers. Compare that to, say,
506,000. Whoa.
Eric July. Look at July's most popular video on his channel.
2.1.
Now compare that to Lily's most popular video.
Ooh.
Yeah. Now look at the divide in run times. Think of how many hours people have spent watching Lily Orchard. There is a titanic gap between Orchard's success and theirs in this regard. Because even among bad media critics, there is a tier list, and most right-wing grifters are in the shadow of Lily Orchard. And that's actually deeply upsetting, actually. Why am I pointing this out? So why does any of this matter? Who cares, right? Why do bad movie criticisms make the landscape of media criticism a worse place? Well, simply put, it allows people to stop thinking critically. A trend I notice online is that people will echo what their favorite person
go full monkey mode.
And if you watch, say, Lily Orchard, you'll probably agree that Steven Universe is pro-fascist. If you watch Ethan Van Sciver, you might argue that Marvel Comics is secretly controlled by a lesbian Illuminati. But the problem is this. By doing that, you're actually not engaging with the media anymore. You're just echoing what someone else told you to say. And and you're not coming up with your own answers. And if those answers you're echoing are based off faulty logic, that means you're not even engaging with anything anymore beyond their perspective. You're helping create an alternate reality where art and a fake version of said art exist in tandem. And if you don't believe it, consider the Mandela effect. There's a trend among audiences to create fake quotes from movies without intending it. For example, Darth Vader never says, "Luke, I am your father." He says, "No, I am your father." A small detail, right? What about that scene in 2001, The Space Odyssey, where they say, "My God, it's full of stars"? Everyone quotes this scene, but but it never happens in the film.
Never quoted that.
This is what they call the Mandela effect. It's when you remember something happening that didn't actually happen. Bad movie criticism and bad media criticism is speeding up the Mandela effect to an absurd level. If you see a bad movie critic misinterpret something online enough times, and those bad critics echo each other, knowing that it's successful in the algorithm, you'll think art did something that didn't actually happen. You believe their lie and never return to the media in question to double check. And then you echo those wrong beliefs, and more people will believe you. And ultimately, this distances everyone.
I mean, if it's something like on the equivalent of, like, no, I am your father line, being just Luke, I am your father, I still think it's not bad because it still keeps the main point across. But if it's something like you showed the example with Odyssey, my God, it's full of stars, yeah, that's kind of problematic. And it's probably like the second one over the first one.
From the art that you supposedly love. And that kind of fucking sucks, doesn't it? This is made all the worse because often bad movie criticism paints a target on real people. Spreading lies about a movie is one thing. Slandering a person, a real person, and blaming them for perceived faults that don't actually exist or are highly exaggerated, that's far worse. I ultimately don't care if you...
Context, basically. Like, if it's, like, genuinely by one person's hand... Yeah, you can blame them, but on the other hand, you need the context, like the genuine context for why it's like that.
Like or just like The Last Jedi, I won't...
Because chances are you might be blaming one person for something that they clearly haven't been responsible for. What was it? In Internet Historians Ever Given, Ever Take It Away, literally the exact same thing happens there. It's like some girl, literally just... a girl, what was it, captain, gets blamed for it, even though she's not only completely not involved with the situation, but she's in a completely different part of the world. It's like, how the hell do you blame someone who clearly isn't in that position in the first place? It's like, huh?
Sleep over it. But you know who will lose sleep over your harassment campaigns? The actors involved with the film. The crew who have been targeted for harassment.
That
That's
I don't
screwed
get.
up, man.
Like, actors give their faces, voices, and everything else to bring these characters to you, and the fact that you're attacking them, Jake Lloyd is, like, still the gold standard example of that. Poor kid. Still a fan of Star Wars, though, but, man, he didn't deserve all that flack.
Especially when bad movie criticism is combined with conspiracy theory paranoia, where you blame Daisy Ridley or Kelly Marie Tran for some greater evil in the film industry. And you target them and you harass them. That's just cruel, man. The danger with bad media criticism is that eventually it bleeds into real-life conspiracy theories, which can hurt actual people. It's all part of the greater pipeline that exists on the internet. The paranoia, the clicking on videos that you agree with and getting more extreme stuff and more extreme stuff and more extreme stuff until you're no longer living in reality. You're living in a divorced existence outside of the real world that everyone else lives in. You create a less safe place for your peers. But there is some good news.
Safe place.
There's a cure for all this. And you want to hear the cure? You want to hear the cure? I'll tell you right now the cure.
Hit me with it.
Watch the movies you're complaining about and come up with your own ideas.
That or watch a walkthrough or something else like that. I mean, granted, yeah, like, if you're gonna criticize something, get the full information and, like, details of said thing as opposed to, like, actually watching or listening. But on the other hand, like, it's best to just maybe watch it once and then, like, formulate your own ideas after you've watched the original series, episode, whatever. I guess don't take anything at face value. Don't take it at face value.
Sounds easy, right? Then start thinking for yourself for once.
He is right, though. You need to think for yourself, because chances are people might be drilling something completely different into your head. It goes against what you might like. It is an option. It is a possibility.